For most of the history of consumer technology, setup complexity and device complexity move together, knowing it should last you years. But in the US today, that confidence is disappearing. More Americans are noticing something unsettling. Devices aren't lasting like they used to. Batteries degrade faster, screens fail sooner, components wear out unexpectedly, and even premium devices feel surprisingly fragile. This growing frustration has a name: the new tech lifespan crisis. And it's becoming one of the most important and overlooked issues in the modern electronics industry. Because when devices die earlier than they should, consumers pay more, businesses pay more, and the entire technology ecosystem becomes less sustainable. So why is this happening? Why do modern gadgets seem to break faster, even though technology is supposedly improving? The first reason is design priorities. For over a decade, tech companies have been obsessed with thinness. Ultra-thin phones, ultra-light laptops, slim tablets with almost no internal space. Consumers love the clean aesthetics. But that design trend came with a cost. When devices get thinner, they become harder to cool, harder to repair, and more vulnerable to damage. Smaller batteries degrade faster. Slimmer frames bend under pressure. Compressed internals heat up more easily. And once a single component fails in a tightly packed device, the entire system becomes compromised. In the race to make gadgets look sleek, durability quietly took a back seat. The second reason is the rise of sealed components. Batteries glued in place, screens fused to frames, boards soldered to other components. For manufacturers, sealed designs reduce costs and streamline production. But for consumers, they make repairs nearly impossible. If a battery wears out, something that naturally happens over time, many modern devices can't simply have the battery replaced. Instead, the entire device becomes compromised. Americans are essentially being pushed into upgrading sooner because the hardware wasn't designed to be serviceable from the start. The third factor is thermal stress. Today's devices run hotter than ever. High-resolution screens, advanced cameras, multi-core processors, AI functions running in the background, 5G and Wi-Fi 7 chips. All of these generate serious heat. And heat is the #1 enemy of electronics. It accelerates battery wear. It weakens solder joints. It stresses internal components. It reduces long-term device health. Manufacturers try to counter this with software optimizations and thermal throttling. But the physics are unavoidable. The more powerful devices become, the harder it is to keep them cool inside compact metal shells. Another major cause of the lifespan crisis is the fast pace of firmware updates. Modern devices receive updates that, in some cases, place higher demands on older hardware. A phone that handled its software perfectly 2 years ago might struggle after several major system updates. This is not intentional sabotage. It's often the result of new features, new security requirements, and new background processes that weren't originally part of the device's workload. But the effect is the same. Devices feel slower, batteries drain faster, and hardware ages prematurely because it's being asked to do more than it originally had to. The fifth factor is component consistency, or lack thereof. Supply chain disruptions over the last few years forced manufacturers to substitute certain parts with alternatives that weren't always identical. In some cases, devices with the same model number might contain different screens, different batteries, or different chips depending on the production batch. When components vary, so does durability. They fade into daily life rather than demanding attention. That is the goal. But understanding the trade-off changes expectations. These devices are not built to be pushed endlessly at full power. They are built to deliver consistent, comfortable performance within strict physical limits. Silence is achieved not through magic, but through restraint. This design philosophy is unlikely to reverse. Advances in efficiency, materials, and system design will improve the balance, but the core trade-off will remain. Thinness and silence will continue to shape what devices can and cannot do. In the end, the silent trade-off behind ultra-thin, ultra-quiet devices is control. You gain elegance, comfort, and portability, but the system gains more authority over how performance is delivered. The device works harder so you do not hear it working at all. And that quiet is not the absence of effort. It is the result of constant, carefully managed compromise. Today, many devices enforce strong defaults automatically. Users are guided through minimal choices, while the system enforces complex security rules silently in the background. Cloud integration is another critical piece of this puzzle. By tying devices to user accounts rather than local configuration, when a user signs into a new device, preferences, settings, permissions, and data can be restored automatically. This creates the impression that setup has disappeared entirely. In reality, the setup process still exists, but it is distributed across cloud infrastructure, identity systems, and background synchronization, rather than a single onboarding screen. However, this simplicity comes with trade-offs. As setup becomes easier, user visibility into system behavior decreases. Many users no longer understand how their devices are configured, where data is stored, or how different components interact. When something goes wrong, troubleshooting becomes harder because the system is designed to hide complexity. The device feels simple until it fails, at which point the complexity reappears all at once. This tension has influenced how products are designed. Engineers now spend less time creating setup options and more time designing systems that can safely make decisions on the user's behalf. Error prevention matters more than flexibility. Products are built to work acceptably for most users rather than optimally for a few power users. This is why advanced configuration options are often hidden, removed, or pushed into secondary menus. The rise of ecosystems has accelerated this trend. Devices are no longer evaluated in isolation. A phone, watch, car, laptop, and home device are expected to work together seamlessly. Simplified setup is essential to make these ecosystems usable at scale. If each device required deep manual configuration, the entire ecosystem would collapse under its own complexity. Simplicity at the surface is what allows complexity underneath to grow. From a business perspective, simpler setup also lowers support costs. Every step removed from setup reduces the chance of user error. Fewer errors mean fewer returns, fewer help desk calls, and lower warranty expenses. Even small improvements in setup simplicity translate into significant savings. This financial incentive ensures that companies continue investing heavily in setup optimization. Importantly, this shift does not mean devices are becoming less capable. The opposite is true. Devices are doing more than ever, but they are doing it autonomously. Background services manage updates, performance tuning, security monitoring, and compatibility without user involvement. The device feels easy because it is constantly working to absorb complexity on behalf of the user. Looking forward, this pattern is likely to intensify. As devices incorporate more sensors, more software layers, and deeper integration with digital services, exposing that complexity to users would make products unusable. Simpler setup is not just a design choice, it is a necessity for future device adoption. In the end, setup is getting simpler precisely because devices are getting more complex. The more complicated the system becomes, the more important it is to hide that complexity from the user. Modern tech success is no longer measured by how much control users have during setup, but by how little they need to think about it at all.